Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson, coming at you today on the eve of Oscars big night. Yes, that's right. Tomorrow is the Oscars. And today we're going to talk Oscars, which has become kind of an annual thing that we do on the show. I think we took a little bit of a hiatus because of the pandemic, and the Oscars were weird during the pandemic anyway. But I'm going to bring on our kind of like resident Oscar expert, our very good friend, Mr. Ryan Casselman.
I just noticed your subheading just now.
Yeah, when we came in beforehand and we were just kind of briefly chatting, I saw you wrote Big Oscar Nerd, and I quietly typed mine in. I was like, I hope he doesn't catch it till we go live.
I just read it. I was like, what did he write? Cool. What's up, guys?
How you doing, Ryan?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, actually, all things considered.
You look great.
Thank you. I'm almost 40 pounds down since November.
Wow. So, that's insane, dude. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks.
Do you feel better? Are you feeling?
Yeah, overall it's really starting to like become apparent that I've lost a lot of weight now. Like, it's easier to move around. I don't pant when I like bend down to tie my shoes, kind of thing.
Right.
So it's all the little things that you kind of realize have become a difficulty that you didn't quite register as being a difficulty. Now it's like, oh yeah, this stuff didn't used to be so hard.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's awesome, dude. Thanks. You look better. You look healthy. You look active.
Yeah. We got a ways to go still, at least according to what, the medical people I'm working with want. But they're super happy with my progress so far.
Oh, great.
Got to tell you. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. This is the middle of the month. I usually talk the health stuff at the top of the month. We're here to talk about what is yours and I's Super Bowl.
Yes.
I don't really watch the big game, but I certainly get interested in movies a lot more this weekend every year. Right. So here it is, the Oscars. Now, I'm a nerd about the Oscars. I don't miss them every year. I try to make sure that I'm, kind of in tune with the kind of general consensus of what's going on. But you are one of those guys who actually tries to watch even like the short films that are nominated and really have your pulse on everything. So I always love getting your input on stuff because I think you've got like a science behind how you determine who the favorites are and everything. And if you guys haven't checked out Ryan Casselman's YouTube channel, make sure you go check out his YouTube channel, because he does every year these incredible breakdowns of like what's won what leading up to the Oscars. And he's got formulas that he's come up with that kind of dictates who we anticipate will be the winners. And I've been engrossed in those for years, and especially the last couple of days as you've been dropping this year's videos. You do a great job with it. What got you going on that? Like, when did you like suddenly have the impulse? Like, I'm gonna break down how this works.
I don't really know how it happened. I just know that I think there was I was really interested in how that preferential ballot worked in the Oscars, because they have a very specific ballot, and I thought it was super interesting how it worked. And I couldn't really find a video that really kind of explained that process really well. So I just thought, I'm going to make a video and I'm going to share it with someone, because I have sites that I go to and read about Oscars. So yeah, I made a video and sent it to that person, and I don't know, the response was like very positive, and they wanted me to do it the next year, even though it was only meant to be kind of like a demonstration, a one-time thing. But they wanted to see it again next year, and I started doing it only once a year, and then I just started seeing the feedback that there seemed to be a community of Oscar nerds out there that I didn't really quite knew existed to quite the extreme. So I started making like a bunch of them, or started making more. Yeah.
Oh, I've been trying to explain it to friends of mine who aren't as into movies as I am. They're like, "Why are you so obsessed with the Oscars? It's it's like pat each other on the back, schmooze with the high ups bullshit." I go, "No, it's the Super Bowl of movies."
Yes, yes. That's all the way I can explain it.
And once I put it to people that way, they go, "Oh,
yeah,
okay."
I can honestly tell you to this day, I didn't know when the Super Bowl came, I didn't know it was the Super Bowl. And now that it's after the Super Bowl, I don't even know who played in the Super Bowl. I don't know those things. I can't even tell you 2 football players that are currently in the NFL right now. It would be like Junior Seau, and like it would be old 90s reference. Or John Elway, does he still play?
No.
You know what I mean? So, but I could tell you random stuff. I can tell you, who won Best Picture and you know what I mean, or whatever.
Yeah. And a lot of the people who can tell you those football stats cannot tell you who directed anything.
Right.
So, we all have our fandom, we all have our nerddom, and I think it's all well and good that the sports guys have their sports, and it's all well and good that we arts guys have our various art deals. I mean, we have a lot of award shows when you really get down to it. But the Oscars is really kind of the end of it. It's the big one that everybody's kind of hoping to get. So, for all intents and purposes, it was like the playoffs the last couple months, and you analyze the playoffs to kind of get a feeling on who's got the edge going into the big night.
To the best of my ability. I feel like I'm still working it out. It's science.
Every statistician has his thing that he's got to work out. And in the end, there's variables you can't control.
Exactly. That's what I love about it too. It's some things are very predictable, but when things happen that's not predictable, it's like an adrenaline rush. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Hey, I just want to say hello to Susan Davis. I popped up her little message a little bit ago. She said,
okay.
"Hi, gorgeouses."
Oh, there.
I'm going to pull it right back up. See, gorgeouses. I'm now gorgeous alongside you, Ryan.
It's not a high bar, but yeah.
So there's one big question I have for you going into this year's Oscars, because last year you called me up asking a bit about Spider-Man. It was around a year ago, right?
Yeah.
And you went in and did this gorgeous video about someone who's not really an MCU like avid fan, wondering what it is. And we had a discussion about that, because you're very much a Scorsese kind of like art house filmmaker, and the kind of like obsession with pop culture films was kind of, you weren't getting it. And we had a long conversation about that. One that was really just a continuation of a lot of like regular conversations you and I have had over the years.
For sure, yeah.
But your video, you and Yvette watching all those Spider-Man movies together and watching kind of your appreciation of them evolve through that process was just beautiful, by the way. Like,
oh, that's cool, man. Thank you.
It was so cool to see somebody really open their mind to the idea that there's something there that they're not seeing, and try and understand it. Talk to a fan who really gets that stuff and try and see it. I was so impressed with that video.
Thanks. To me, it's just like it came from a place of just pure like logic. Like logically, these movies make billions of dollars. So like, am I right? And a million, billions of people are wrong. It's just logically, it doesn't make sense that there has to be something there to make that much, to create that spark.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just thought that was such a great video, and I love the open nature of you like exploring that side of film, that's not your natural preference. I thought that was really cool. I wish more people would do that, because I like consuming it all. I have my preferences, which tend to skew more towards the popular stuff. But there's a couple of pictures in the Best Picture nominees this year that I'm really curious.
Do you guys see do you guys see this this transitioning he's doing is fantastic.
So there's a couple of, actually 3 movies in particular in the best picture category that I just really want to hear your take on, because of that kind of like preference towards the art house films, kind of recently starting to understand the more popular movies and that they have merit as well. But the Avatar, Top Gun Maverick, and Everything Everywhere All at Once are 3 movies. When I saw them nominated, I was like, I gotta get Ryan's take on this stuff, because like,
oh, I love it.
Because like they're definitely popcorn fare in a way that you don't usually see in the best picture nominees, for one. And like 2 of them are banger blockbuster box office smashers, right?
Yeah.
So I think we'll start with the one that has like the least likely take on taking anything home, which is Avatar.
Right.
I have my personal opinions about the Avatar franchise, which do not jibe, generally speaking, with the $1 billion plus box office that it pulls in. They're beautiful to look at. I think they're really empty films overall.
Okay.
That's my take, general hot take, which people hate me saying, but that's what I feel. What's your take on Avatar?
Generally, I was actually like, when I saw the first one, I kind of had that same take that many snobs do, where you're like, oh, this is Dance with Wolves via Blue People,
Ferngully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think over time, stepping away from the idea that I haven't really had, there's a part of films that I do miss, films that were kind of in that 2000 era where it was like a very immersive experience. And there's a certain filmmaker that, I don't know, James Cameron creates that spectacle. Top Gun created the spectacle, and it's a spectacle that feels fully immersive in the idea that you feel like you're actually in the world. It's not so much based on story. It's just an experience. And I don't feel like I don't see a lot of movies that are truly like using the format of film in an immersive way like James Cameron does. And I agree with you, like maybe the story is not all there, maybe like the dialogue's a little lazy, but other than that, I actually was surprised by how much I enjoyed Avatar 2. Saw it on Christmas, and also the themes of Avatar 2, like the military is like they're bad guys in the movie, and you don't really see that often in American action movies, and embraced, and it's making so much money,
Yeah, that is true. That is true. I found Avatar 2 better than Avatar 1 overall.
Oh, cool.
Because it was less Ferngully and more family oriented, and it was really about kind of like protecting the generations and eventually finding your tribe, because some of us have moved in our lives and have had to find that new tribe, and
yeah,
they're forced out of their place. And I also now work in Indian country, at an Indian health clinic, and so I'm really exposed to a lot of that colonization and the whitewashing and the destruction of peoples. So I get the story, and I appreciate the story for what it is. I just think James Cameron's not the best writer, for one. A lot of the dialogue's still clunky, but he did bring in other writers to help him on this one, and I think it helped overall in the overall picture. My biggest beef with this one, though, was just like it could have been an hour shorter.
Yeah.
Like there was a lot of it where I sat there and I turned to the guys I was watching it with. I was like, do you feel like you're watching an old Windows 98 screensaver? There's just a lot of shots of digital fish swimming around, really impressive. But it was almost like, hey, I'm spending a ton of money on these effects. I got to show them off,
Right.
But it's immersive, true, but I think it was a little overdone sometimes. So it felt unbalanced. It was like, we got to show off a lot of this stuff because, we're spending all this money to create this new technology to make it look amazing. It's like, okay, you could spend a little more time building up the story. And George Lucas was really bad at that too in the prequel trilogy for Star Wars.
Right.
If you go back and watch a lot of the cut scenes on the old DVD box set and stuff, like that's the stuff that really fleshed out the story between like Anakin and Padme. But those got cut in exchange for, C-3PO losing his head in the droid factory and, like big special effects spectacle. And it's like, okay, you know, they're spending all this money on the effects, so they're putting a lot of effort into showing off the effects. It's like, all right, that doesn't necessarily make the movie better, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But Top Gun's, you mentioned that one. Top Gun, I think, is like the opposite direction. Top Gun is all about character, far less about the special effects. I mean, the fighting sequences are awesome, and that was always great with the original Top Gun too. But it really was about character development in this, and seeing Maverick kind of go through an actual character journey, which I thought was a really interesting take. I don't know that he actually grew that much in the first movie.
Right.
But it felt like he grew a bit in this one. And you know,
I also miss the days, like I miss the movies in which the mission, like I appreciate that the mission of Top Gun 2 was so incredibly simple. So simple, like and I just appreciate the simplicity of that, like of a non-complicated plot that you're like, oh my God, you're spending so much effort trying to kind of figure out all the like you ever seen Tenet? You ever seen Tenet?
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out what that movie was about. I have no idea. It's so overly complicated. And I know that's the point. It's like a puzzle you're supposed to put together and blah, blah, blah. But I really appreciate the idea that it was like, oh man, super simple premise, good character arc. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put these people in fighter jets, and you're going to watch. And like that scene where like they have the training sequence was like probably the best scene of the movie. Like smile ear to ear. I love that scene. It's a fun popcorn movie. Like, it's perfect. Like, I'm so glad I got in.
I did like that it was a simple plot. The first one had a really simple plot too. And in the end, I think filmmakers like Christopher Nolan and J.J. Abrams even, and they're not at all the same type of filmmaker, but both of them, I think, fall into the same trap of like, I'm going to build so much mystery that I can never really answer any of this in a satisfying way by the time we get through 2 hours, you know, like
for sure.
It's just like, let's go with a little bit simpler MacGuffin, guys, you know, like not everything has to be incredibly complex. It's fine when it is, but I did appreciate Top Gun Maverick for just saying like, here's this guy, you remember him in the 80s. Look, he hasn't changed at all, you know. And this is the instance where, like, you know, life finally really smacks him around a bit and says, no, you've got to change. You got to come around a little bit because you're losing everybody.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I actually made a bad take video. Like I was thinking, because I think back early in the year when the movie came out, you know, people were saying, oh, it's going to get nominated for picture. And I remember thinking like, I'm not one to like really jump at the gun and say something's going to get nominated, because I know there's so many movies to come throughout the year. So I basically made a video saying, I don't think this is probably going to get nominated, but have fun for now, you know? And it got nominated. It did pretty well. I'm actually quite surprised it didn't get the director in there with how popular the movie has seemed to be. But, you know.
I got a little distracted. Jordan Jacobos posting responses to Susan. Because remember, she said, hi, gorgeouses. Jordan says, really? Them? And I mean, let's not go nuts. Jordan, jealous much? There it is. Okay. Our friends, ladies and gentlemen. So then we get to Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is really the big one I want to ask you about, because this one is, even within your own prediction videos, it's on track to most likely be the front runner to win Best Picture this year. Now, this is a movie that was produced by the Russo brothers, famous for being the directors that brought the MCU home in the first 3 phases. So the biggest spectacle movies of comic books were these 2 guys. They produced this film, and it borrows a lot of the tropes from like the Marvel playbook of multiverses and superheroes and, you know, abstract comic book thinking of like philosophy of the everything bagel, right?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
It seems to me like this is a movie that wouldn't fit in with you at all.
Right.
What was your take when you saw it like doing so well? And what was your take when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, I was initially surprised by how emotional the movie was, and that there's so many different parts, and there's so many different parts where I will cry at different parts, and yeah, that's definitely the most emotional movie I've seen in a long time. And I feel like Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of that perfect bridge between your world and my world, where it's an artful, clever, and beautiful, and it's everything everywhere. It's a great movie. And then what was the other question?
Well, you kind of wrapped all my questions together into that answer, but you know, when I first watched that movie, I was just blown away at how artistic it was. I was expecting
Yeah.
it to be a fun, lighthearted movie in the end, about the multiverse, but it really is so rooted again in family, in interpersonal journeys. That kind of, I mean, the thing about the Everything Bagels is just representing like the empty, hollow middle of the girl in the film, right? Like,
Right.
um, I was really caught off guard by how deep it was. And I thought,
Absolutely.
this is such a beautifully complicated and interesting film in the way it's presented as a kind of like Marvel type movie,
And on its
but
nose,
also very, very art house.
yeah,
It was an
it's a
incredible
strange
blend of those
beast.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it feels like a movie that on its nose when you hear about the kind of stuff that's in it. Like if I were to tell you, like, oh, there's this bit about like Ratatouille, like and oh yeah, also there's this other universe where everybody has hot dogs as fingers. You wouldn't think the thing would be good or possible, or you definitely wouldn't think it was emotional. You
Right.
know, I wouldn't think that I would see a scene with women with hot dogs and I would actually start tearing. Like it's just bizarre. It's crazy that it should not work,
It
that
shouldn't
movie.
work, but it totally does. It's
It
so
totally
bizarre.
does. Yeah. It's amazing. And seeing you know, Ki Kwan like kind of sweeping the season has just been like the most joyous thing ever. And that embodies why the Oscars can be so fun too. Like someone that used to watch his old movies, and just that comeback story and the Cinderella story of that is just
Well, and
incredible.
it's for me, it's so rewarding to see him get recognition now at the age that we're at, because I grew up with him, right? Like the Goonies, Indiana Jones, like he was everything. Because for me as a young Asian kid, like that was me on screen with Harrison Ford, like Dr. Jones, like, I loved him. And Data was like my favorite character in the Goonies, because he was inventing shit, and he was just always like enthusiastic to try new things. And like that was me as a kid. I tore apart the phone just to see how it worked, like busted in my dad's computer and figured out how to do DOS commands with no training from anybody, like I just, tech was everything for me. And Data just, I saw myself on film through him. And then he disappeared. And
Yeah.
by the time I got to college and was looking at, as a theater major, looking at what kind of theater major I was going to be, like I minored in acting because I didn't see myself having a possibility of having a career, you know, essentially looking the way I look. And I just didn't see that happening for myself. So I never really pursued acting, even though that's something I really, really wanted to do, and to see
Mhm.
him finally coming back to it and getting all this recognition, like, representation matters. And it's done my heart a tremendous amount of good. And it's one of the things that I love about Everything Everywhere All at Once is that whole relationship between the mother and the daughter, and that Asian family dynamic. Like I had a little bit of that growing up, and
Mhm.
I certainly had a lot of friends who really had that dynamic. And I remember, how out of place a lot of us felt in the world, because mom didn't cook the same foods, and people didn't understand when they came over what the smells were in the house, and all that sort of stuff. And to see this movie being so accepted and so widely lauded as it is, like it's been incredibly, you know heartwarming for me to see. And
Yeah.
I have a lot of hope that there's more of these kinds of things coming down the pipeline. More films with, good Asian representation, good ethnic representation just across the board. I think it benefits us all to have those kinds of stories being told.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like, like the Oscars are not incredibly like, it's very hard for a film that is kind of in the realm of a diverse cast or whatever. It is tougher for those films to break through. And it's not because they're not good. It's because, they don't they don't see them as, oh, it's not very relatable, or I didn't connect to it. There's a reason you're not connecting, it's outside outside your experience, so you have to kind of get outside your experience a little bit and take in the movie and just see them as, humans. And I feel like humans. I feel like Parasite opened the door for kind of, these movies to get in. It was the first foreign film ever to win in that major category. So
yeah. So we got a question here from Anthony Mays. It says, let's talk an upset. Which category do you think will possibly have one this year?
That's a good question.
This is a question that only you can answer, because I don't.
I think the toughest category to call for me is supporting actress. It is an insane category. Carrie Condon from Banshees of Inisherin is in there, and then you got Angela Bassett for Black Panther, and then also Jamie Lee Curtis is kind of like the Hollywood royalty spoiler choice, and I really am having a tricky time predicting that. But in terms of an upset, I would probably say like, I would probably say, I don't know if it's an upset, but Michelle Yeoh, I think, can upset Cate Blanchett for sure. I think I would predict that.
Oh, in the leading role?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see Michelle Yeoh win that, because she's been in some absolutely amazing films all throughout her career, and she's been in this a long time, and it's nice to see her getting recognition now. As far as actress in a supporting role, like, I mean, for me, of all of those, and actually the only one I didn't see was Carrie Condon. I haven't seen Banshees of Inisherin. But Angela Bassett in Black Panther, man, like that performance is just, I mean, she took everybody to school in that.
Right.
And it's coupled with the fact that so much of it was so close to, the loss of Chadwick Boseman, and it's a tribute performance to the pain they were all feeling while making that movie. And for me, like, to push that performance out within the context of everything that cast and crew was going through, it just blew my mind. Like, she's so good in that role.
Yeah, there's so many different elements too, like of, Angela Bassett. She's never won an Oscar, and they're gonna want to give her an Oscar, but then you're like, but they've never really given an Oscar for a Marvel performance, and then you're like, and then there's the Chadwick Boseman thing, and then you're like, but they didn't even give it to Chadwick Boseman, they gave it to Anthony Hopkins, and it's just like this thing can go on and on and on in your brain.
Yeah. But I mean, for me as a director, and an actor, I really appreciated everybody's performances. Stephanie and Jamie Lee Curtis both in Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, that film is truly an ensemble movie. Like no question. Every one of their performances is rock solid all the way through. But when I walked out of the theaters this year, the one movie where I walked out and I was like, damn, that woman needs to walk home with an Oscar at the end of the year. The only one that I flat out felt that for, well, two women, Angela Bassett and Michelle Yeoh. Those two performances just, I was like, this has to be the year for both of them. And I was like, I hope to God they're not in the same category, because I didn't know where Angela Bassett's would fit, like, she was so big in Black Panther. She could have been a leading, but it just, like, I want to see the two of them take it home, because they were the two throughout the year where I walked out and I was like, yeah.
I was definitely settled on Bassett. I was comfortable, settled with it. I was like, okay, she's going to win the Oscar, no problem. And then the SAG Awards came and they gave it to Jamie Lee Curtis. And I was like, oh, Okay. And then
Breaks.
BAFTA gave it to Carrie Condon, and it's like all across the board. I'm like, okay, crap. I don't. Yeah.
Well,
And it
and to
takes
be
time. I don't know.
clear, I'm usually wrong in all of these things when we do
Right.
these. So,
Well,
I have my preferences, and it doesn't generally jibe with what the Academy decides.
right.
I do want to ask you about actor in a leading role as well. There's only 2 of those performances that I've actually seen. But again, when I walked out of the theater for this one, I was like, I just don't see how anybody could possibly do a performance better than Brendan Fraser in The Whale. Now, I don't think the movie's great by any means, but that performance was incredible.
That's all. I didn't even know you watched it.
Yeah.
This is exciting. I love hearing the movies that. That was my main motivation of being on the thing. I was like, I want to hear what movies he saw from this year.
Yeah.
Okay. So Brendan Fraser, and then what was the other one?
Elvis, Austin
Elvis.
Butler. Yeah.
And those
Who
are the
did a great job.
Yeah.
Job. But for me, like, Brendan Fraser just disappeared, and that character was all I saw. You know, like the first 3 or 4 minutes, you're like, wow, that's fucking great makeup, like whatever. And then you never think about it again. Like, it's just like, oh, this poor fucking soul, man. Like,
right.
This movie's incredibly depressing, but my God, you know, like, and you get to the end of it and like, oh wait, he was acting. Like, that's not really like,
Yeah.
wow. You know, and it also hit me because like I watched it after all these like health diagnoses and, you know, hey, you're morbidly fat and you're on your way to the grave unless you like do all these changes. And I'm like, I totally fucking relate, man. You know?
Yeah, that's fucking brutal.
It just spoke to me in a way that, like, you know, that performance spoke to me. I again, as a movie, I think it was shot like a play, which I don't like. I don't like movies being shot like a play, and I get that it was a play first and translated into film, but the blocking and everything for me was just very much a stage production. Brian went and saw it with me, you know, and we met in college in theater, so we both have the same kind of like theater background, and we both walked out of it going, did it feel like it was like staged like a play to you? Yeah, totally. The blocking, like they should have done a Spielberg, you know, 2-shot to a 1-shot, but they only got the guy halfway there and it still stayed in this awkward 2-shot. Like I don't know, like yeah, it's just. And I usually really like was it Aronofsky, right? I usually really like his movies for being artistic and being, you know, kind of outside the norm. But this one just felt very like, well, this is the way it was in the play, paint by numbers, just put the camera here and let them do their thing. You know, I don't know. It just, as a film, it didn't work for me, but as a performance, it just floored me. But again, it speaks to me in a certain place in my life. But in the end, isn't that what like character study films are supposed to do? You know, like
Exactly. Yeah.
speak to the human condition. It just happens to be the condition I'm in. So
well, you know, I know a lot of people took issue with it. But it's I mean, yeah, it's I actually quite liked it quite a bit. I like his work and overall, and it's actually interesting because me and Yvette kind of had different interpretations of the ending, but I don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, it's
we haven't hit the spoiler limit yet, right?
Yeah.
I'm totally unsure what that limit is anymore.
So who are you rooting for? Like, you're out of those 2, you're rooting for Fraser, and who would you say is going to win out of those 2?
If it's just between the 2 of them, I think Fraser would win.
Okay. This is scary, man.
So the problem for me with Butler in the Elvis role, and I have this problem with all of the kind of like biopic movies, is in the end, it's an impersonation of a real person.
Yes.
You know, and that is a talent, and it is a thing that, you know, I know they put a lot of work into, but in the end, it's not creating a character from scratch. It's building upon somebody's actual real life mannerisms, their real life speech, you know. And for me, it's kind of a shortcut to like, hey, here's somebody you already loved really well. I'm going to play this person that you loved really well. And hopefully I play it well enough that you remember the guy I loved really well and like award me for it. And it's not the same as like, I don't know this fat guy living in his apartment from Adam.
Right,
But by
right,
the
right.
time I walked out of the theater, I was crying for him, like,
Right, right.
and that to me is way more powerful from an acting perspective than
It's
making me forget that you're impersonating somebody else,
right. I mean, have you seen him on the awards trail too? Like,
He hasn't been able to get rid of the accent.
yeah, I mean, I know it's like an internet thing, like, hey, everyone noticed, but like for real, he really has not dropped and I honestly feel like that's kind of hurt him in a way, because it's like people are able to see that and go, oh, you're not that wasn't a character, like this is like a persona you're adopting. Like I think it's confusing and jarring for people to be like, oh, so you're very similar to your. I think people like to
Yeah.
feel like you're
Yeah.
acting when they award you. They want to feel like, they want to feel the act and they want to see the work. And if it looks like it didn't look like you did as much work as I thought you did, even though I know he did, of course. And the
absolutely.
dance movie,
And I feel crappy, like saying something like, hey, his work isn't as valid as the other,
right.
but I think the perception is, again, you're building off of an already existing kind of love and fan base for the person you're portraying, which can affect people's perception of your performance. If you do just an adequate enough performance to come across as the guy, like, congratulations, you've tapped into already existing emotions, like, that's
Right.
wonderful. Now the flip side could be said, hey, David, you're fat and you're feeling really crappy about it, so Brendan Fraser just tapped into your already existing emotions about that too. And I'm like,
No, well,
okay,
Fraser has
fair, but
Fraser has a likability that's just hard to resist. Like it's hard not to like him in anything he does. So
yeah,
it was brilliant casting to cast him in it, I thought. Even though it was, I guess, controversial casting. I don't know. But
well, he'd like Daniel or Ki Kwan, he kind of faded away for a while,
Yeah.
and so both of these guys, it's lovely to see them back in roles that are really good for them.
Right.
So the part of me that is a Brendan Fraser fan would love to just see him get recognition, because again,
absolutely.
a lot of his early work was that kind of popcorn bubblegum fare that, even though his performances are amazing and strong and all of those, like, The Mummy and was it Encino Man, like all of those sorts of things. Like, the fact of the matter is there was a lot of work to create those characters that people loved in those popcorn films, and now as an adult, he's tackled this huge kind of big role and just nailed it, and I would love to see him get the recognition.
Bedazzled, man. You seen Bedazzled?
No, I
Have you
haven't
seen that movie?
Bedazzled. No.
Oh, it's so good. Bedazzled.
I
don't know
check
if
it out.
anybody's watching this.
Oh wait, no, is that the one with what's her name?
Elizabeth Hurley.
Yeah, no, I have seen that one. Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's a great. She's the devil, right?
Yes.
yeah, it's a great one. Let's talk director, because I'm very curious for your take on the director. Again, I've only seen a couple of the movies. I know you've seen them all. So we got Todd Field for Tar, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere at Once, Martin McDonough for The Banshees of Inisherin, Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness, and Spielberg for The Fabelmans.
Yes.
Who's your hot take for director?
Who's my hot take? Who I think is going to win?
Yeah.
Oh, the Daniels. All day.
Okay. All day.
All day. Yeah, the Daniels. It's pretty amazing because I thought they would probably go. I honestly thought I have this perception of the Academy Awards, and it's or the membership, and it's very much the membership that I knew when I was growing up watching the Oscars. And I think the membership has slowly been changing, and I keep wanting to apply an old membership to today. So old membership would never allow the Daniels a win. They're just too hip, young. I don't know, a little like, crash the party rock stars. I don't know if that's the way to describe them, but I feel like they've crashed the party. They're there because not of prestige or whatever. They're there because they made a badass movie and they were undeniable,
Right.
And so usually they want to give it to their club, their members, their established directors that they've admired, like their Scorsese's even though he only won once, but those types of people, their Clint Eastwoods and their whatever. So yeah, I thought they would go the Spielberg. They would go, oh, Spielberg, love letter to himself. It's got to be Spielberg,
Except the Academy has like always hated Spielberg.
That's also true.
You know, because he can make incredible art house films like Schindler's List and then turn around and make those popcorn blockbuster films like Jurassic Park all in the same year.
That's right.
And they're like, nobody's allowed to do that in this business. You do your one damn thing and you be good at the one damn thing. You can't be good at all of it.
Fun fact about that too. Schindler's List is the only film, for the most part, to sweep all major awards throughout the entire year. But it lost one award, and that was the People's Choice Award. And that was Jurassic Park, though, he won. So he still won it. It was a different movie. It's pretty interesting.
But that's a popcorn movie that appeals to a wider audience than the really depressing Schindler's List. Yes. Which also appealed to a huge audience. But
yes.
Both when you're talking People's Choice, it's going to be the lighter fare. You know,
absolutely.
People like to be the jump scared, you know.
Yeah, but what about you? Do you think it's the Kwans?
I would hope it's the Kwans. Yeah. Again, because I think Everything Everywhere All at Once represents kind of like my epitome of where I want to see filmmaking go.
Yes.
Where you have the Marvel kind of big spectacle, you know, high concept stuff mixed in with the kind of amazing aesthetics and character development of an art house movie. Like, I think blending those two things together is the future of cinema. I think that's where we need to go. Like,
absolutely. I love that.
So I hope it wins, just for the sake that would encourage the industry to look more to those kinds of movies.
Has Marvel, do you know, have they swiped them up or anything for anything? Because he would be so perfect for.
I have no idea. But the fact that, you know, they worked with the Russos, like, I imagine that tunnel towards Marvel is available to them if they want.
For sure.
I try not to pay too much attention to what future Marvel projects where they say so and so's directing, because that changes a lot.
They just drop out.
It changes a lot. They're like, yeah, so and so's directing, and then like, oh no, the timing's not working out. We're gonna have someone else direct. You know. So.
Could you imagine the amount of stress, like, being the Daniels right now, in the terms of like, this has been a big like success, smash success. The idea of like, what am I going to do now? Like, right. I always think about that massive pressure, like, or even like the pressure that Jordan Peele must feel like. I don't know if he feels that pressure, or maybe that's what defines, you know, how people are able to become successful, because they don't have that thing in them. But for me, that type of pressure would absolutely probably demolish me.
I think what's interesting about that question is, by the time the movie's released and you discover that you're going to have that pressure, you're already working on the next thing or next two things, you know? So
it's already
you see that a lot with, especially with like the actors. Like, a guy will win Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor, like Cuba Gooding Jr. or whatever, you know? And you're like, yeah, way to go. Like, you're going to do amazing things. And the next 3 movies are terrible. You're like, why'd you do those? It's like, I had no idea I was going to win Best Supporting Actor, you know? Like,
or even better.
I was just happy to work, you know? And then it like taints them, because the follow-ups weren't as good as the thing they won the award for. And then it's hard to book them, you know, down the road. It's such a like catch-22 having a successful film, I think, because you've already made decisions on what follows it that aren't necessarily based on the fact that it was a big deal, you know?
I mean, they say that Eddie Murphy was going to win the Oscar for Dreamgirls for supporting actor. And I believe he lost to Alan Arkin that year. And the reason why, people say, Mr. Stat Stag, that's right, man. The reason why is because he did Norbit. That was already in the can, and that was coming out right when voting was happening. He had Norbit out.
So I just saw a whole bunch of, like, my feed here just like populated with a ton of stuff. So let's see what everybody has to say. Hi, Clark.
My God. Just watch All Quiet on the Western Front. Devastating. How will it do? That's interesting, Clark. All Quiet on the Western Front won BAFTA. Huge shock at BAFTA. Big shock. Everything Everywhere actually didn't win anything but one award at BAFTA, so there is something there. And the idea that All Quiet on the Western Front is doing incredible with international voters. Like, So I don't know. To me, there's two rules of thought. There are actually people out there that saying that that's the spoiler to win Best Picture if there ever was one. I'm more of the mindset that it's more of a kind of, that it's not as popular here in the States as it would be maybe in Europe, closer to where, the story took place. I love the film though. I was amazed by how much I liked that movie.
Yeah.
Did you watch that one yet?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Okay. It's on Netflix. Watch it when
I'll check it out. I'll watch it today.
cool.
So Anthony Mays replied, was thinking the same category to the upset question he had asked earlier. And Susan Davis agreed that she thinks it'll be Angela. She's hoping for Michelle. Hi, Carla. I want Brandon to win on his ability to learn as an actor. Butler needs to work and gain more experience.
Oh,
that's an interesting comment. The experience thing. Like I don't necessarily agree with the idea that like people should win their awards based on a history of work.
right.
Because it's supposed to be at the one particular job, but it happens.
It's weird because sometimes I'm all for it, and then sometimes I guess it all is relative. Yes, the Daniels. All right, cool. What's your take on the Fabelmans? Did you watch Fabelmans yet?
I haven't. I've been so busy. So little background on me, all the health stuff going on, right? Plus I've got my full-time job, which I'm still kind of adjusting to having. And I was working on post-production edit on a feature film all year. So like my time's been like incredibly precious. So I didn't get to see quite as many films as I was expecting to. And you would have think, since Spielberg is like my favorite director of all time, I would have made it to see his self story, but I haven't seen it yet.
Not a lot of people saw it. It didn't do very well at the box office, and I was the only one in my theater. But yeah, no, it's a beautiful movie. It's more it's kind of interesting because I was actually, before the movie came out, I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I'm kind of skeptical about the idea of like making your own story. Maybe like someone else should like step in because you might be not as objective as someone else taking on the story. I don't know. I didn't know how I felt about it, but
right.
After watching it, and also I wasn't sure that he would have like any actual family trauma or drama that would be interesting.
Right.
I was nervous about that, but there actually is juicy stuff there. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Though it also felt a little too long, maybe like could have cut 20 minutes there. It's
funny. It's the type of movie I would love to go watch with my sister, but there's no way she'll go see it because she hates Michelle Williams.
Oh, ouch. Well, this is going to be worse because it's Michelle Williams with that haircut. It's just going to be double damage for her.
Yeah. My friend Lauren from Georgia. Hi. Carla says there is something always waiting in the wings.
Yes.
Susan says All Quiet was incredible.
So good.
And she wants your thoughts on Triangle of Sadness.
Triangle of Sadness was a very interesting movie. I'm actually not as familiar with the other director's work. So that was kind of my first real experience from that director. And yeah, it's really funny. To me, the second half of Triangle of Sadness is when the film really took off. The first half was kind of like, oh, this is amusing. I'm enjoying this. I'm being amused by all these kind of like fumbly rich people, ridiculous rich people. But then when it gets to the second half, which I won't give it away, but the movie's kind of separated almost in like two halves. And that second half is to me like when the movie really took off. And then you have, Dolly De Leon, who's in the movie. She's like, she should have been nominated this year. I think that was like one of the biggest snubs of this year. But yeah, she was. That's when the movie really took off for me, and like I was like, this is great. I love this movie. So if it was just the second half for me, it would probably be like one of my first like favorite movies of the year. But the movie as a whole, it kind of like sits in that maybe top 20.
Gotcha. Susan Davis says her take on the Fabelmans is meh.
I understand it. I get it. I think about it all the time about like, okay, outside the realm of like being generally obsessed about Spielberg and filmmaking. And I really do wonder like, how did the real audience member, the guy down the street, how did he like the movie? And I wasn't convinced that he would like it. It felt very much for filmmakers and people who have that kind of aspiration. And even Susan Davis, who has that aspiration in that side of her, she was still like, meh. Yeah.
Yeah. But in the end, it's also very much a personal story about a boy's journey, so I could see how it not really appealing to Susan either. And then Carla says to check Gods and Monsters with Brandon.
I've seen that.
Yeah,
It's good.
It's a
good
good
stuff.
movie too. Susan says, I mean, it was gorgeous, but boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's not everybody's cup of tea, like, I mean,
Fair enough.
In the end. And even Spielberg said it's a movie he was scared to make, over the years, because he wasn't sure that, anybody really wanted to see it, So, okay. Well, that's a big run through all that stuff. We're going to skip all of the kind of like visual effects and all that stuff this year. Hopefully next year we can get the whole team together again. We'll do our ballot comparison.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is always unfair with you because you've got your formulas and your science and
pseudoscience.
Next year, you need to do those videos wearing a lab coat.
I thought about at least taking some for my thumbnails. I should have got a lab coat. Yeah.
The clipboard.
Which is odd because I think the most ironic part of the idea that I started an Oscar YouTube that's kind of science based is I used to get like D's in science. Like the idea that I started something science related is kind of farcical.
Well, I think it just goes, if the topic that you apply the science to is relevant to the student, then the student can excel.
Exactly. There you go. They didn't explain it right.
But math in a void is just math and it's boring.
Yeah.
Okay. So for everybody who's been watching, thank you guys so much. Ryan, where can they find you on YouTube? What is the YouTube channel?
I'm at Ryan Casselman, my name. I should have put my last name there, but you can just go Ryan Casselman, Casselman on YouTube, and you'll find me. Or you can just go to, I think I'm tagged right here in this live stream, so you can click my name, and then I posted some YouTube. There it is. Boom. YouTube.com/Ryan Casselman. That's me.
I typed really fast.
That was fast. Yeah. I just put up some videos, some experiments recently, and people have been geeking out over them. And that's the most enjoyable part is I put myself out there in a way that I thought this is going to be embarrassing probably to people I know, but whatever, I'll do it. And the idea that there's people out there that like geek out over this, I had no idea they even existed. So,
oh man, I'm so excited every time you post something, because you do really great videos. Like
thanks.
And
man.
Again, that Spider-Man video, like my whole family talked about it. Like,
yay!
Everybody was just like, man, Ryan, like he's so good at these. And that video especially was like so engrossing and so like we were on the journey with you and Yvette. Like it was fun to watch. You do a really great job.
That was a lot of. There's certain things you learn when you kind of start doing YouTube, and one of them is like some people just want the reaction. You know what I mean? And it's so interesting to kind of post something that I felt like I worked really hard on. It's a whole hour, and I worked really hard on it, but some people just want the reaction, some people in the comment were just like, get to the reaction already. But anyways, I appreciate that you liked it. I'm glad.
Which reminds me, speaking of reactions, I'm gonna promote my work at work. So
anybody who's watching this though, go check out the Spider-Man video because David's in it. I think
I do make a little cameo. Yes,
he makes a cameo. It's fantastic.
I'm like the scientist that sends you off on the journey. So at my work, we've started doing a movie reaction show called IHC at the Movies.
Oh, awesome.
And last month we watched A Walk to Remember, the Mandy Moore movie from early 2000s. And so we watched these movies from a kind of mental health, kind of social interaction perspective, because I work with our behavioral health department at our clinic. And also from like a Native American perspective, when it's relevant to the conversation, we bring that up. So we're going to be reviewing Rain Man this month. Nice. So make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Indian Health Council. And be part of that conversation in our chats on that as well. That'd be really great if you guys supported us and helped us get our numbers up on that as well. And then we got 2 more comments that have popped in.
I was going to say, David, you're very good at this. Everyone in the comment section, congratulate David on being such a good host. Oh. I'm so incredibly awkward. And the idea that you're able to do this.
Yeah, I'm handling all the tech and listening to you and keeping the conversation going. Yeah, it's
amazing.
I've done like 300 episodes of the podcast now. So, like I'm getting, I think I'm starting to feel my way around.
No, you're just a good interviewer too. You navigate the conversation so well.
No, I appreciate that, Ryan. I really do. So that's it. I know you've got more stuff that you're working on today and trying to get to, and I don't want to hold you up for too much longer here. If you're I think that meant to say David is a natural.
Davis is a natural. Yeah, for sure. If you want to nerd out even more, like through all the categories, I'm going through all the categories tonight on YouTube too. So, and live. I've never gone live before on YouTube, so I'm going to try it.
Awesome. Yeah, I like going live. I like being able to like interact with the audience as it's happening. And I use this platform StreamYard because most of the people who watched us today are on Facebook.
Yes.
But we're streaming, just for all of you who don't know, we're streaming to Facebook. 2 different pages on Facebook, my personal and the Intellectuals. We're streaming to the Intellectual YouTube channel, my personal Twitch channel, the Intellectuals Twitch channel, and the Intellectuals Twitter account. So this stream's going out to all those simultaneously, and wherever you're watching, I can monitor and we can respond, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
So this is a fun service. I love this service. When I found it, I was like, this is perfect. This is excellent. Ryan, thank you so much again for making yourself available today. I know it's a busy time for you because Oscars.
It's the only busy time of the year for me.
It just didn't feel right to do this without bringing you on board because you've been with me on these Oscar reviews for a number of years now. And hopefully next year we can get the whole band together that it'll work out that way. But it's always fun to geek out with you on movies. And
yeah, we should have had Mark on here because Mark is always the one who frustrates me the most. I'll never forget to this day, there was a short film called Skin. And I'm like, I saw the movies. I'm like, that's not going to win. I thought it was like the worst short of the block. I was like, they're going to win. And then during the predictions, Mark was like, I'm going to pick Skin because I was in a movie called Skin. And and it won. And I was so mad. I'll never forget that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, classic Mark.
All right, Ryan. Well, you take care. Have a great day. And just hold on for a minute. I'll chat with you after we're done with the broadcast before we say goodbye. And everybody else, thank you guys so much for joining. Please subscribe to the Intellectual Podcast on your podcast players. The video version of this podcast is available to watch on Spotify as well when it goes live on the podcast. And it'll be available as audio only on all the rest of the platforms shortly, later this afternoon. And until next time, Cocaine Bear. What a great movie.
I'm really interested in the people who are just joining in now.
That was such a great one. I saw a movie trailer recently for like something we really need to go see next. I'm gonna have to try and remember what it is.
Oh, the Nicolas Cage one where he's a vampire, I think is a possible.
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah. We should watch that.
That should be our next one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, cool.
All right, man. Take care.
All right.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck. Telling you, please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.